I'm excited to interview you, Matt Chang, for those who aren't familiar with you yet, founder of Chang Robotics, the 8-year overnight success. Tell us a little bit about that 8-year story.
Well, first off, it is an honor to be with the Cheryl Conner,
Thank you.
The industry icon. So, yeah, I mean, 8 years. It's been a really fun ride. Through the whole thing, it's been a growth opportunity for me personally, growth opportunity for my family. We had 4 kids in that span, so we went from married with no kids and we could do anything to now it's very much about the family.
And tell me a little bit about what you do.
We design robotic systems for the workforce, and we do it in a couple of industries. Our bread and butter is manufacturing, specifically advanced manufacturing. So for American companies that want to compete at the best cost basis globally to the highest quality standards, then those are our best partners. We have always served government. We reserve a certain portion of our time every year to do what we call GovTech, or government innovation projects. And as an extension of those disciplines, we also tend to get involved with the e-commerce. Every time there's a big change, such as micro-fulfillment centers or mega fulfillment centers, we tend to get involved there. And most recently, we started doing healthcare. So we've delivered autonomous hospital operations, and we're super excited about what that could mean for the country.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see those operate.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned time of change. Could there be any bigger inflection point than the one you are sitting in this minute?
Well, I think this is currently a tie. And we'll see if it goes to number one, because the COVID pandemic and the resulting bullwhip of both labor force and supply chain was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, ranks right up there.
Well, we all forgot about it, right? Because we all got some PTSD. So
old news.
Yeah. But what we're seeing now, it's 5 years later, and it's of the same magnitude today. The question is, will it grow larger, right? Is this realignment of global supply chain and resurgence of domestic manufacturing, is it a flash in the pan, or is this a sustained change?
Well, you have certainly an interesting perch because you work with so many Fortune 500 clients, and I know you can't name them, so I won't ask.
Yeah.
But what a vantage point. And so if you were talking to one of them right now who doesn't know you yet, what are those clients, what are they poised to do, and what are you advising them to do?
Yeah, that's how all of our engagements start, is even though we design robotic systems and then we install them, it always starts with advisory to our clients, because changing to a high culture of automation is a culture change in the business, right? And the CEO, the C-suite, and the board, they have to be aligned with that, because it's going to be a shift. It was a similar shift as everything went digital and companies started going to the cloud, right? Is the same level of culture shift in a business to do robotics. So, what we say is, I would start number one by thinking about your workforce, right? If for companies that love their workforce, and I know all great American companies do, you got to give them the tools they need to be successful in the future and competitive on a global basis, right? And so we look at demographic changes. A lot of people like to dunk on the Gen Zs that they don't want to work as hard. I can tell you that if you give Gen Zs the right tools, they want to work, right? And they want to work hard. But does the workforce deserve robotics? We think in most cases, yes. So that would be the first part to think about. And of course, is every company is in business to make money and be in better business in the future. So you also really got to focus on your cost. And for American companies to reshore production and then do perhaps more export or domestic production, then we have to get to a better cost basis. And so we are seeing just some killer ROIs in robotics that may not have been as true 6 or 8 years ago.
Or 6 months ago?
Well, I think it was true 6 months ago. I think we just weren't as focused on reshoring. But where we're at with technology today is the cost of robotics has come down, the consistency and reliability has gone up, and we have enough data now. We publish this on our website via white papers, but we have the data to show that you can get 2 and 3 year paybacks on robotic systems just on a labor basis, just on a cost basis. So with those types of savings, we can start to layer things like energy savings are becoming huge. And suddenly it's just a good financial proposition for big companies to want to invest in robotics because it's going to make them have a better cost basis forever.
So this is a big topic. I know that it is because you did interviews this morning with Reuters, with Business Insider. You've been writing about this for Fast Company, so it's not a secret. But the tariff situation is shifting by the day, by the hour, and that makes an interesting proposition for the companies who are saying, yes, this is the time, or is it? What do I dare do, or what should I do in the face of that rapid change?
Yeah, I think at a minimum, every company should be building a plan to expand investment in the United States. Mm-hmm. All companies invest, right? All profitable companies spend money on CapEx, and that money goes to various initiatives or maybe even mergers and acquisitions. And I think this is a great time to focus on domestic production. What are we doing for domestic production? Tariffs may go up, they may go down, may be negotiated. Some of these tariff agreements may be breached and revert to previous states. So I think one of the key things I'd say is go ahead and set a long-term plan to bring down operational costs, energy footprint, to optimize your labor force so that the same number of workers can produce more product. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and put those structural changes in now because these culture changes in businesses and the installation of robotics, they don't happen overnight. So you've got to kind of start now so you have a long-term plan that you can deliver on over time. So I'd say everybody should be starting their planning today, if not yesterday. And then in terms of what's going to happen with tariffs, obviously the biggest one out there is China, but there's other countries that don't have their trade deals yet. So expect to see those tariffs go up for a lot of countries that haven't negotiated trade deals yet. That is going to be subject to change. And I think COVID taught us a lot about the sensitivity of sea freight, right? That sometimes we can't get enough containers shipped. Sometimes we have so many we can't move them. So the nearer that we are to our supply chains, the healthier our companies are, and the more resilient we are to any future impacts like a pandemic, like a closing of a major canal, or any of these events that have global impact.
It's interesting that it was not that long ago that you wrote that definitive article for Supply Chain Brain on nearshoring and the trend and what it meant. And in the few months since, it feels like it's a new question yet again. And you wrote about running into a challenge even getting your robotics equipment across the border from Canada without unexpected charges. Yeah,
and that's an interesting thing. So we advocate for American manufacturing. Our job is to empower that. But we do source robotics from around the world. Mm-hmm. And robotics is very much a global game. A lot of countries have niche expertise in a certain area of robotics, and we search those companies out, we find them, and we use those as opportunities for our clients. So we were importing one of my favorite brands of autonomous robotics from one of my favorite companies. They're based in Canada. We were in a truck headed to the border with our load, and then we got whacked with a tariff bill before we crossed the Canadian border.
Giant.
It was pretty substantial,
Took your breath away for a second.
The Chang family did not eat out that weekend, but what a lot of people said, well, geez, didn't you see this coming? Yeah, I wrote articles about it leading up to that. Didn't you see this coming? And the nature of our projects are they're projects. We place orders for very high-end custom robotics to be delivered in accordance with a project schedule with many other deliverables from many other places, engineering, permitting, electrical installations, and these all come together in very elaborate project schedules. So the idea that we were able to wiggle that order, that's just not reality, right? It's what we call critical path scheduling. Mm-hmm.
But it didn't give you pause for long. You kept going. It didn't interrupt, I guess, as you're describing it, the long-term plan.
No, and that's more about having consistency in a plan. I talked about that CEOs should have a consistency in a plan. These things are going to change by the day. We've seen the Canadian rate go up, go down. We've seen the same with the EU. And so I think if you have consistency in a plan, you're kind of buffered from the day-to-day churn and what the bilateral trade agreements and some things that are yet to be revealed. And I think, are there business impacts? Yes. When you pay a tariff, it costs money. But at the same time, once you've landed those automation assets and they're in production, you're enjoying a sustained cost benefit, right? And so I think it's that dual thinking of let's not be reactive, let's be proactive.
Well, and I imagine that maybe these manufacturers are more aware than I was, but you've talked to me about how complicated it is that the supply chain, when you say I want to source from America, that's not the end of the story. Some aspects are really complicated.
Oh, we're still, trust me, I've spent my whole career in it and I'm still trying to understand it. We may mine things or drill for things here in this country and they go to other countries to be refined and to another country to have value added, and they come back for perhaps finished assembly or finished manufacturing. We do live in a global economy, and we're always going to import. When it comes to things like coffee, when it comes to things like bananas, this country is always going to be an importing nation. And we are also desired to have nice things like, I like to have Swiss cheese from Switzerland, right? And I think that's okay. I think the importance is that the critical things that run our country, we have domestic production and domestic capacity for.
Yeah.
There are glaring weaknesses when it comes to refining, when it comes to milling. There's a lot of steps within the production of any good that we really do need to focus on reshoring. And I think our position there is that the federal government has got to advocate for standing up those industries. In some cases, it's not a question of asking American companies to invest more. Many have pledged, and we're part of that. We are part of that pledge with our customers. But in some cases, we just don't have the industry here. So it's got to be started, right? And we have to create an environment with access to capital and clear regulatory structure so that American builders can get to work and fill the gaps on supply chain.
And you are creating at least one, maybe more factories yourself in this process.
Oh, many more. Yeah.
Many more.
Yeah, we, in terms of engineering, we're designing both retrofits to facilities where we take an existing production asset and then we upgrade it to be, advanced manufacturing, industry 4.0, if you will. And then we're also designing greenfield factories, where a company wants to do a totally new production or a new product. They want a new piece of land with a new workforce and expand. So in those cases, we're currently working with different states for state incentives so that we can get the best deal for our clients. And then we're also working, on the real estate side, helping explain to the real estate folks exactly what they're looking for. And it's not just acres, right? It's acres, and it's access to workforce, it's access to the right power, it's the right environmental conditions. Do we have enough water? Are we going to be able to get our air discharge permits done in this location? So it's a very multifaceted approach, and we're active in multiple site developments right now on behalf of our customers so that they can expand their domestic production.
So speaking of your customers, there are at least a few who were the biggest names we might recognize as America-based organizations. But for those who haven't reached out to you yet, what should they know? I know everything starts with an advisory, but you do that at the certain level. How does this happen?
Yeah, it's really easy. And as engineers, we had to fight our nature to just make it very simple. Attorneys have the same problem, by the way. But so what we've done is we've created an intro package where within 6 to 8 weeks, we can complete an upfront study and needs assessment and define the requirements, and it's $90,000. So we went for something that's just ultra affordable in terms of these types of services. And from there, we're able to set a first budget, a first schedule to identify types of technologies. And then here's a critical area: we rule things out, right? A lot of our customers have ideas of what they want to do, and sometimes we've got a poor little dose of reality. And the answer is not no, Cheryl. It's not right now, right? That there may be foundational steps that have to come first. And in the case of emerging tech, we may need to wait a few years while the industry catches up, right? So my favorite example is I have not met with a CEO in the past year who didn't bring up they want an AI-driven factory. And I love that phrase and I love the vision. And I said, well, the answer is yes, but not right now. There's some foundational things we have to do with automation, with IoT, with data, and with inventory. When we have those building blocks in place, then it will be appropriate to source AI to help run manufacturing. But also, in the same time, AI is growing so fast, it will be ready, because it's actually not ready today. So those are the types of conversations we're having. And I think the big part for CEOs is just to have this laid out in the proper sequence, right, of what are the steps to take, what are the organizational resources in terms of staff and attention and money that they have to allocate for each step. And then, of course, their CFO is going to ask them, what's the payback? Right. So we also identify that as what is the value add to the business and the shareholders at each step along the way.
So I know that much of what you look at as well includes the perspective of we don't know everything in terms of the current administration. You've seen a lot of steps. You've given analysis on what it means. But for anyone concerned that it's difficult to make a long-term plan if you don't know exactly what that landscape will look like, what do you hope will happen, and how do you advise people to guide themselves through that?
Well, yeah, I think we do know what's going to happen, right? And I think as we see the policy papers coming out, they're very moderate, quite frankly. They're, of course, pro-growth, and they're pro-making a good deal, right? We do have a president that loves to make deals. So expect that to come, and obviously high theater around it, because it does make for good TV. But in terms of the policy, we had Trump 1, and in his first term, President Trump laid out very clear policy positions. One of my favorite career milestones was reading all of those and then developing a government technology system in Jacksonville, and then applying to the Trump administration in the first term to be funded for a high-tech system in Jacksonville, Florida.
How's that coming out?
Well, the summary is we won, right? So, and I think one of the reasons we won is because we took the time to read what they said in the policy papers, and we aligned our objectives with those policy papers. Just to catch you up, that system, it's an autonomous mass transit system. It goes into revenue service next month. So we're just so excited.
Wow.
Yeah, from concept to reality.
There's a headline.
American made. The vehicles for this autonomous system were built in the USA. So we're really excited about what that means. There's going to be a lot of regulatory growth too, because there are no regulations on how to run a system like this.
Yeah.
So it's very much a prototype and a test bed for the country. But if we think about that micro example of, hey, one system and one successful funding from first-term President Trump, I think this time around we have the body of knowledge from the first term, and we also have some clear policy explanations rolling out right now. I saw the Department of HHS roll out some policy positions today. They're very clear. They're very clear. It might not be what everybody wants to hear because it is change. But if you read it and you take them at face value, it's very clear. So I think we know enough today to begin to align our plans with what we can reasonably forecast. And we always build in flexibility to the plan so that we can make adjustments along the way, but it doesn't really change our direction, right? If we're aiming for the stars, we're aiming high. And so if we have to make some navigational changes, we'll do that, and we'll leave that flexibility in the plan.
So given all of this, you've been wise, you've prepared, you've also been fortunate. If you could look out 5 years from now, what do you predict and what do you hope?
I think 5 years from now, manufacturing is going to be considered cool. That's what I think. I think young people really do desire to work with their hands. There's a significant cohort of young people that desire a non-college alternative. I think for the longest time, college graduates that were skilled in engineering, from schools like mine at Georgia Tech, went into careers like manufacturing, and that's not so common anymore. So I think as manufacturing becomes cool again, partially enabled by robotics and AI, then more of the workforce is going to want to do it. Because building things that actually exist, building things that matter, is going to become more important to our national identity. So I'm very optimistic about that. I also think over the 5 years and out time horizon, it's going to get easier. We have to train a lot of workforce to do this. And so we're going to be training continuously. Even at my company, we're hiring at record pace, and we're training those new hires in how to operate within our system and deliver advanced automation. So the whole industry has to grow. We have to really invest in human capital. And one of the things I'm excited about is we have a major AI initiative just within my company. We've installed AI for our customers for years. And it was last year that we said, we've got to do this for ourselves.
Right.
So we're trying to do more with less as well. And I think that's something as a nation, we have to find how to be more productive and how do we get more done with the same number of people.
Interesting times.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, we're excited. It's going to be fun to observe it. And unless there's anything else that you would like to add right now.
No, I think that's it. I think,
Okay.
I'm going to continue in the media and in my writings to advocate for American manufacturing, but I want to be a source of empowerment for people to where I'm laying out a clear roadmap. What are the steps that we have to take? So it's one thing to say we need to make more. It's another thing to be given a step-by-step guide. And so we see that as our role.
Well, and I can see that clearly your door is open. A lot of people have approached you, continually, but this week.
Yeah, it is.
So
it is very
it's-
busy right now.
It is busy, but clearly you still welcome it.
That's right. Well,
That's
we
good.
we always want to try to do more. So thanks,
How
Cheryl.
should people reach out?
So people can just reach out to us through our website. We'll provide contact information in this video so they can send an email. And we just look forward to connecting. I'd say at a minimum for people that are on the curious side
Yes.
and not quite ready to take a step, just follow us on social media. We put a lot of work into both our website to bring insights and also places like LinkedIn, where they can follow me personally on X, which is a little bit more unfiltered.
The straight source.
That's right.
Well, thank you. This has been good.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl.